Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. My name is MC Brown. I'm VP of Products here at Continuent, and welcome to our webinar today. Today we are actually going to have a slight change from our normal series of webinars. We're going to have a look at a use case, an actual customer case of how they're using it. We're going to have a look at Samsung ARTIK. I'll explain who Samsung ARTIK are and what they're doing a little bit later. Before we get on to that, I just want to do a few areas of administration before we start. Just for reference purposes, this webinar is being recorded. You want to be able to watch it again later. You want to be able to go and have a look on our website. Want to be able to go and view our information and indeed all of our videos and training videos and other webinars. Please feel free to do so. You're also free to ask questions during this. If you want to ask questions, there is a questions section in your webinar panel. Please feel free to ask a question. There is time at the end. We will go through those questions and I'll post them up. I will also post that information out onto the blog immediately afterwards, so that you'll be able to look up that and follow and see what we said. So with those two little bits of administration out of the way, let's get right back into the webinar and see what we're doing. So this is a brand new webinar series. There are actually going to be 4 of these. We're going to have a look at customer use cases of how they're actually using our Tungsten clustering product. And the purpose of these webinars in this webinar series is we want you to understand how you can serve your SaaS customers better, your software as a service customers better, in the cloud and around the globe with maximum availability using the Tungsten clustering software in order to provide your MySQL database needs. So I think it's worth looking at why this has happened, right? I mean, the primary driver behind this is that for many of our customers, a vast majority of our customers, and indeed the economy in general, right, we are moving now onto this kind of subscription model where you pay for services as you use them and you want to be able to get access to them. And this means that from the perspective of people like you and obviously people like us who are using their database, it means that we have to change the method in which we make that the database software available. It's not about providing, that one single monolithic database or even a single monolithic database that has been scaled out with multiple masters and slaves. We actually have to change the way that database is made and provided so that it is practical for a wide variety of use cases. And also, covers a number of different things. It needs to be available, it needs to be scalable, it needs to be able to manage your costs, because as people who are providing this software as a service onto other people, you want to be sure that you're able to maximize your investment and make sure that you have your revenue in place as you go forward. It's also very, very clear that generally people are getting very, very used now, right, to this subscription experience. We're all familiar with it on a personal level with things like Netflix. We're all familiar with it on a company level in terms of things like AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure. All of these things make it available, and it's all about making it available all of the time, and it's immediate and it's real time. We have customers that have subscription services. Customer comes up, signs up, says, I want a service. The database that is behind that needs to be able to support that and be available at all times. And it is all processing and proceeding forward on this basis. Now, what we're going to do in this webinar series is we're actually going to demonstrate how we have achieved that with a number of our customers, right? 4 of our select software as a service customers. And we're going to give a full use case, and we're going to describe what we've done at a business level rather than necessarily at a technical level. If you want to go and have a look at our technical level, we've got plenty of technical webinars that describe what we actually do. We will have a look at some of the technical aspects, but that's not the focus of this particular webinar in this session. But we're also going to have a look at how we've done that in a way that has ensured we maximize the revenue for your SaaS service to provide it on to your customers. And we're also going to demonstrate how we've been able to do that alongside being able to both predict and cope with revenue growth, right? So at the end of the day, you want to be able to provide this service to your customers and then provide it on in a way that enables you to expand without having to worry about the technology, without having to worry about the issues you might have in terms of your database, your application, how you're going to make that work and how you're going to make that scale up. So the customers that we're going to look at, these are the 4 customers that we're going to look at. So Adobe Sign was Adobe Echo Sign. So this is the if you've ever had to digitally sign something, or digitally sign a contract or something, that's the service. Bluefin Payment Systems, they go ahead and do a payment gateway solution. Obviously, again, you know, similar principle, lots of people subscribing, signing up so that they can go forward and do this subscription. We have New Voice Media. They're a communications company. They make available customer records, call records for people, for customers calling in, you know, support calls and other material. And then the one that we're actually going to have a look at today, which is called Samsung ARTIK. And ARTIK is Samsung's Internet of Things platform. We'll dig into that a little bit more once we get there. Our focus, as I said before, right, is always about the revenue protection and the revenue growth, and how we've actually been able to achieve that. And what we do is we do that in 5 different ways, right? One, we provide revenue protection, and that's all about the technology that supports this, supports our ability in order to ensure that your database is available at all times, and ensures that your database is available and practical without you having to worry so much about how you're going to achieve that scalability, how you're going to achieve your HA and your DR requirements. We're also going to have a look at the revenue upsides, and this is your ability to scale, how you can scale out and how you can make that work. Again, I'm hopefully going to demonstrate how we make that work within the Tungsten clustering solution, and how you can make that work within your business, and obviously how these various companies have made it work. We're also going to demonstrate how we can do this at a lower cost, and lower cost, you know, covers a variety of different angles. We'll dig into those. We're also going to describe how we have a complete solution. Hopefully it's something that will sit there and you won't need to provide any level of customization or extension on top of that. We're also going to talk about our Sterling customer service, which is something that we are immensely proud of, as well as obviously you know, something that our customers are really happy about. So little bit about Samsung ARTIK. So Samsung ARTIK, for those people who are not familiar with it, the Internet of Things is a technology that has been around for a long time now. I've been interested and involved in the Internet of Things for about the last maybe 18 years now. So Samsung ARTIK is actually both a software service, in that they provide a gateway and an API for information to be communicated and ultimately concentrated down into a database. They also provide a hardware platform that is used to collect that information. And by Internet of Things, we are talking about collecting lots and lots of different data points, and then being able to use that and process that in interesting ways, whether that's alarms or whether that's ultimately down to the level of control. Again, looking at it from a personal level, if you've got a Nest thermostat, that's an example of an Internet of Things. It sits there, records the temperature in your house. All of that information is stored down into a server, and then the server makes that available so that you can control your heating from your home, or the Nest device can control it for you. From the perspective of Samsung and Samsung ARTIK, what they're doing is they're providing this hardware platform and the software API behind it, and the database that obviously stores all of this information, and they're making this available not necessarily for homes, but more for business. So imagine an industrial workplace where they're recording lots and lots of information about the machinery and the working environment. You know, they are recording literally everything from the temperature of the machinery, the RPM of different components, how many different components are being made. All of that information is tracked, and all of that information is collected by the Samsung ARTIK device, and then it's ultimately uploaded onto the Samsung ARTIK servers through the API, so that they can then go in and have a look at graphs of status, and also ultimately make decisions about it. Now, Samsung ARTIK, I'm just going to call them Samsung from now on, came to us, and they were looking for a solution. They had up to now been using Amazon's RDS solution for their database, and they had experienced issues. And what they were looking for is they were looking for a better solution for them that would cover a few things. So what we did is, first of all, we had a look at their solution. We understood exactly their problem. Went through and tried to properly understand actually what they were trying to achieve, and the first thing that we wanted to concentrate for them was actually how we could make sure that they were able to realize their investment from the perspective of, they have a database, they have this software API, they wanted to be able to ensure that that was always going to be available, because obviously if they're not able to capture the data, then their customers are not able to use it. And as a software as a service company, this is something that happens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year. They need to be able to do this all the time. And at the time, they weren't able to achieve this. What we were able to provide them with our Tungsten clustering solution is we were able to ensure that they had continuous operation. So the Tungsten clustering software sits there in front of your MySQL database and actually just makes into your applications it look like another MySQL database, but you don't know the fact that actually behind that we've actually built a clustering layer, and that provides you with your continuous operation. We automatically handle failovers. We automatically, handle things like zero downtime maintenance. We go through the process of being able to hide all of that for you, so that your database looks to your application just like any other database, but has all of the protection in place to ensure that if there is ever a problem, we are able to handle that for you. And the Tungsten clustering software takes away that problem of being able to manage that. And this ensures your revenue protection, right? This will ensure that your system and your database will be available for those 24 hours a day that are required in a modern SaaS environment. And it also means that in the event of an issue, you're able to get back quickly. You're able to get back to this point of being up and running at full speed as quickly as possible, because the technology is there in order to handle that for you. We are protecting your investment in your database and your API and making that available so that you can have a 24/7 support on your SaaS platform. Now, obviously, in the terms of Samsung, we did this in a number of different ways. Obviously, we did this from the perspective of they have clusters at their site, and within those clusters, they have failover. They also have clusters at multiple sites, and we replicate the data between them, and there's failover between those sites. So even in the event of a failure at one of their sites, all of the data in their application can continue working through the other site, and their application will never know, because we hide that from them through the Tungsten clustering service. And what they see is they see a 24/7 available database without having to go through all of the customization, without having to go through all of the complicated process of how you ultimately make that work. Obviously, there are so many different components to this that come behind. Obviously, we provide full service supports for them. We also helped Samsung with their migration from their existing system to our new one with zero downtime, so that we could do it in a way that didn't even interrupt their current service, so that they weren't even aware of the fact that they've migrated to this brand new service. Bottom line is, we protected their ability to charge and make money for their customers, for their SaaS platform, because we ensure that the database is available for them all the time. Now, the next thing that we're trying to look at a way in which we can help them is with the Tungsten clustering solution. We use a fairly common model that has actually been used by a wide variety of SaaS customers over the years, and that's to go to this pod-based architecture. So the pod-based architecture basically says, rather than try and build a massive database cluster that is capable of coping with all of these different companies and all of these different SaaS customers at a go, what you do is you divide up your SaaS customers and say, this block of SaaS customers is going to be on pod A, this block of customers is going to be on pod B, this block of customers is going to be on pod C. And this means from a SaaS perspective, right, you can control that through your application, and you go down and talk to your database. The database is still sat there behind Tungsten clustering with all of the protection, all of the functionality that I've just described, but it means that you can have as many of these pods as you like. We have customers who are, running 60, 70, 80 pods at a time using this same technology, and it means that you can scale as much as you like. Right? If you suddenly have an explosion in your SaaS platform, you need to be able to support more customers. You need to be able to support more environments and still have that guaranteed 24/7 uptime. We can go ahead and do that just by enabling you to deploy new pods. And those new pods, by the way, are very, very quick to set up. The other thing, though, which I think is really important from the perspective of the upside, is that we can ensure that your application performance is great, and we can do that in two ways. One, we can do that because that's one of the key functionalities of Tungsten clustering, But the other point is that because we can install our software in any environment, in any localized area, and also still provide that cross-site replication across multiple sites for the failover, it means that you can get your data as close as possible to your customers. So if as a SaaS provider, you have a worldwide selection of customers, but you've got a group of customers who are, say, in Asia, and another group of customers who are in Europe, and another group of customers who are in the USA, you can take advantage of that by installing our cluster in Asia, in Europe, in USA, and we can even replicate in between all three of those different regions. Now that's examples. Obviously, we can do it all over the place. In Samsung case, they've actually deployed 2 pods. So each of those pods is actually in 2 different sites. So we've got 2 pods, each at 2 sites. And that means that they've got localized data, so very, very quick access for their application. That keeps their SaaS customers happy because that provides the absolute maximum performance. And it also provides for the maximum scalability in that they can, upscale and increase, add new pods and add new pods into new regions or to existing regions if that's what they need to do. Now, the other thing that I think is always critical with Tungsten clustering is, unlike many database as a service environments, right? Database as a service is obviously offered by a wide variety of companies, AWS included, which is what Samsung were using before. The problem with many of these databases as a service solutions is first of all, they are tied to whatever environment you're working in. And the second one is they also are then subject to whatever scaling or performance metrics are available within that particular site and that particular environment. With Tungsten clustering, we are able to be installed anywhere. If you want to be able to install in your cloud environment, so AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, we can do so, and we can install our software there. We can also go into virtual environments. So whether that's your own virtual environment on your own platform, or whether it's your own virtual environment within your own data center, on-site, off-site, we can also install onto bare metal, right? We're not limited. And this provides a huge number of advantages. First of all, you can choose the one that suits you the best, right? So if what you want to be able to do is you want to be able to deploy into AWS because you get very good pricing from AWS and it happens to match the rest of your environment, you can do that. If you want to do it and you want to do it into Google for the same reason, you can do that. You can also mix and match. So if you wanted to have some of your stuff in your own data center, but maybe you had the one of the offsite clusters and you had that in AWS to provide your backup, again, we can support that for you. So you get to be able to pick and choose your best solution and make the best available cost decision based on how you ultimately want to deploy it. And that means you get that choice, you get that ability to choose the one that is going to be right for you and the one that obviously makes the decision for your own costs and how you're ultimately going to distribute that. Again, when it comes down to Samsung, Samsung actually kept within AWS because that's where a lot of the rest of their technology is, which is why they were using RDS in the first place. But what they decided to do is they are deployed within multiple regions within AWS, so they split their data across the different data centers in the different regions. Now, excuse me. The next thing we did is we do provide a complete solution, and again, this is another element which I think is important to provide as a distinction from some database solutions, and particularly the database as a service solutions. We offer a complete solution. If you install the Tungsten clustering just looks like a MySQL database would to any other standard application. The fact that we've built in this layer that provides the automated failover, the automated recovery, the automated distribution of work with our read-write splitting, the fact that all of that is there, the application doesn't need to know about that, and we don't need to make any changes to the application in order for that to happen. And that's why I describe it here as application agnostic. Now, the other thing that is important is that because it is a complete solution, you don't have to do anything custom. You know, with many solutions, what you end up doing is you install the database, or you install the database as a service, and then you find you have to install a proxy in front of it. You have to try and find some solution. It requires custom work. It then also requires additional resourcing in terms of someone who's obviously going to develop that and then ultimately support it within your company. None of those things are a requirement with Tungsten clustering. Tungsten clustering, we provide the full service and we provide a complete solution. And it's a solution that's also been around for a long time. Tungsten clustering, as it stands right now, is 10 years old. The company that is behind it is 14 years old. And that means that you have a complete solution working that we know works and works very, very well, because many of our customers are already using it. And they know that it works without you having to worry about it, without your application requiring changes, without your database requiring changes, without you even having to worry about making changes to the underlying platform, because again, we will handle that for you as well. Now, the last item I want to talk about is something that we are particularly proud of in Continuent. We have really, really good stellar support. So we have 24/7 customer support, even for our non-urgent tickets. The vast majority of those tickets are responded to within 5 minutes. Obviously, urgent tickets, we try and beat that, but I think that's a fairly good metric. We also have very, very experienced people. I talked about how old the company was and how old the solution was just now. The vast majority of the people who have been working for the company have been working here for a long time, usually 6 years or longer. In the case of our support people, most of them have, an average of 15 years experience. Some of them have as much as 25 and 30 years of experience in the marketplace. Many of the engineers who have worked on the product have been with the company since the company started 14 years ago. So we have a wealth of experience and we have a wealth of support. And that means that when you come to us with an issue and you come to us with a problem, not only will we respond very, very quickly, but normally we will help you very, very quickly and provide you with a very quick and simple solution, hopefully, to the problem. It's also worth mentioning, we have lots of different customers. Some of our customers have been with us for a long time. Some of them have been with us for 6, 7, 8 years now. And some of them actually measure their uptime in terms of months or years. I think the last time I spoke to a customer was last year at a conference, and they said, I think they're now up to 19 months, or at least they were at the time, of one of their clusters being up. Now, that's survived failures, outages, and it's also survived upgrades and updates, because we were able to do maintenance while the system is running and live, without having to take it down or without them having to take their application down. That is huge in terms of ensuring your availability. And obviously, go back to that business protection, your ability to be able to continue to charge your customers and continue to sell your services without having to worry about whether it's going to be available or whether you're going to have to cope with outages and problems through that process. Now, I said I wasn't going to talk about the technical detail very much, and I'm not. I've only got a few slides here. I've mentioned some of this already, right? So what Samsung ultimately did, Samsung took our Tungsten clustering solution. They have taken 2 pods. Each pod has 2 clusters. Each cluster is in a different region within AWS, and each cluster has 3 nodes, so 1 master and 2 slaves, and then we replicate the data between them. So that means that within a 6 node, within the 2 data centers that you have here, all 6 nodes will have a copy of the information, and that means all of the 6 nodes are able to support the service. In the event of a failure within a single cluster, obviously one of the services dies, we identify that, we shun that from the system and enable the system to carry on running, and then provide recovery tools so that you can bring it back in. Same if an entire data center goes down, we have a nice little layer that sits there and we redirect all your queries to your remote data center. Your application will never know, because your application is talking to the clustering software and it's hiding all of that information behind it. Now, we did a few other things for Samsung as well, which I think are really, really important. Obviously, the cross-site replication, that region-specific stuff is a part of our standard offering, but it was key for Samsung because it means they can concentrate their data in different regions according to their SaaS customers. But we did also, we're also able to do database consolidation for them. That is, combine those databases that they previously had distributed over a number of different services into the same main cluster. And that meant that it was very, very much simpler for them to be able to go ahead and manage and monitor that solution. And then ultimately, once you have the Tungsten clustering in place, the infrastructure is completely hidden from the application. The application is completely unaware of what is going on, and indeed is unaware of any kind of problems whatsoever. So even in the event of a failure or whatever, your application is unaware of the fact that a failure has occurred, and your application, continues to operate. Now, continuing just to have a look at that, we were able to do this, and we were able to do this for Samsung at a much lower cost. And we'll have a look at some of the specific reasons compared to their original RDS solution for why that was the case. But we did it at a significantly lower cost for them. We did it without any interruption to their business. So their SaaS customers were unaware of the fact that they had changed their database architecture, and they did it without having to make any application changes. We literally came in, migrated the service over to the Tungsten clustering without their application even being aware of the fact that we've made that change. Excuse me. And most critically, we also did it in a way that meant they didn't have to give away any of the intellectual property. They haven't had to discuss with us any of their internal details about how their application works. They haven't had to discuss with us, how to integrate some custom piece of code or an open source piece of software, proxying software management layer, etc. None of that needed to happen. All of that resulted in them able to improve their business and improve their service to their SaaS customers. Again, largely without their SaaS customers even knowing that they'd done that, but to Samsung ARTIK, the improvement was absolutely massive. When it came to the migration, we did do the migration, help them through that process. We came up with a complete migration plan, and we assisted them with the entire implementation of that migration as it went forward. In fact, as a standard rule for all customers, we always help you with your deployment. We always try and understand exactly what you're doing, and we always help you install the software and get it working. And the reason why we do that is because obviously we want you to be happy with the software, and we want to ensure that it's installed to the absolute, best configuration settings and the best environment. But also it helps us in the event of a problem. We've helped you install it. We understand, how it was installed and how it was operated, and so we're able to help you much quicker when it comes to actually providing the support. We also did that whole migration, with virtually no impact to any of the customer applications. For the most part, most of the customer applications were unaware that the migration didn't even taken place. So providing some specific comparisons to the old Amazon RDS. So Samsung were using Amazon RDS, and they had a variety of different issues here, right? The first one was they were tied to a single geographic region. This is an issue with the way Amazon's RDS system is currently deployed. Ultimately, it gets deployed within a single region. It gets very, very difficult to move on from that because there is no scalability outside of that. And there's no built-in functionality within the Amazon environment to enable that to be distributed across multiple regions. And that made it very, very difficult for Samsung, who are obviously increasing their footprint, increasing the number of SaaS customers to be able to expand globally. They did want to go, okay, what happens when we need to move into a new market, when we need to move into a new place, what are we going to do? And that was just completely impossible with Amazon RDS. They had also noticed a severely reduced performance, and that was partially, again, because of the Amazon RDS environment and the way it operates. Even with provisioned IOPS, it's possible to get that. They also had issues with occasional outages, and that meant that they had to develop their own recovery methods because there's no automated recovery within the Amazon environment. And so ultimately this all led to them needing more staff just to be able to support and manage the Amazon RDS infrastructure. And that made it very, very complicated to manage. That made it very, very complicated to organize. That made it very, very difficult for them to go ahead and to look at the solution as a long-term viability, which is ultimately why they came to us. Ultimately, they came to us. We were able to provide them with the multi-region, the cross-region replication, cross-region failover. So even in the event of a single region going down within Amazon's EC2, which has happened, we were able to support it. We could give them consistent performance. And more importantly, we can give them predictable performance, right? And that means that when it comes to scalability, they're able to go, okay, we know that we can support this many SaaS customers on this particular pod. we now need a new pod and we can deploy it. And they know that when they deploy it, they've got a whole new environment, and they know that they can support X number of new customers on that new environment. They also obviously get benefit from our automated failover, automated recovery, and this meant that they could reduce their IT staff requirements in terms of just being able to manage the day-to-day database operations. So conclusion, right? We were able to improve their revenue protection by ensuring that they've got a database which is up and available all of the time as they need it. And that's partially to do with automation, partially to do with how the Tungsten clustering is organized and gets it distributed out there. We were able to provide them with revenue upside, the ability to scale. They know how they're going to scale. They know that it's going to be simple to expand by adding those new pods. They know that it's going to be very, very simple to get out there. They also know that the overall system is much, much lower cost. Even if they add new pods, they know how the service works, they know how it operates, and they know, because most of it is automated, that they're going to be able to cope. Even if they increase by 5, 10, 20 pods, they know what that's going to involve and what that's going to require. They know we've got great customer service because we helped them with the migration, and we've obviously helped them with the support since then. I'm happy to say I don't think we've had any significant issues with them since they were originally deployed. And the last final thing, which I haven't mentioned before, we were actually able to offer them improved security over the last solution. So we can ensure that you have SSL between the clusters, between the regions, and even between the database and the application. And we're able to do that, full service across everything. So that's it. That's pretty much the webinar over. Hopefully you found this useful. Hopefully you've seen how we've taken that Samsung's original requirements and then applied our clustering in order to suit their needs. It does come back to these 5 items again, right? Revenue protection, revenue upside, lower cost, the complete solution, and the absolute stellar customer support. These are all really, really important if you happen to be a SaaS vendor and you want to make your database available to your customers, and you want to make your application available to your customers as much as possible. This is absolutely critical. Hopefully you found this webinar useful. Obviously, there's another 3 webinars coming. We haven't scheduled those new webinars, but they tend to be on a Wednesday. Today was on a Thursday, but they tend to be on a Wednesday. We'll probably be, the next one will be in a couple of weeks' time, and I don't know which one is going to be the next one, but keep your eyes peeled if you want to have a look and see what we've done for Adobe Bluefin and New Voice Media. If you want to go forward, you want us to go forward, we do actually do free POC. So if you want to go ahead and you want to proceed on this, please get in touch. You can see the email on there. If you just want more information, we have a great website. It's got work papers, it's got documentation, it's got videos, including more webinars like this and training videos that will tell you how our technology works. Obviously, continue to follow us on our other solutions. And then finally, just some of the people who are working here who will ultimately be dealing with your requests when you come in, just so that you're aware. Again, to reiterate, my name is MC Brown. I'm VP of Products here at Continuent. Hopefully you enjoyed the webinar. Hopefully you found it very, very useful. And if you haven't, you've got any more questions, there's anything you want to know, please feel free to get in touch either on the general link or with my email address as it's there. Thank you very much for attending today. I hope you found it useful, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you.